Hi guys, we're back at Encore Chat, and I'm here with Matt Hessinger, and phenomenal bass player, upright, all different styles. And this is very, very going to be an awesome interview because we have this perspective of all sides of the coin. Okay, and Matt, thanks so much for coming, man.
Wonderful
I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Now, I want to just to tell everybody, like, give a background where you started up to today.
Perfect. Well, so musically, I started by having really phenomenal parents. They were looking at a house. I was 6 years old, and I wandered off into another room, and they noticed that I was picking a song out on the piano, and they realized that they'd heard that in the car while we were driving over. And that started the first phase of my musical journey in school, high school. I played piano, and I played guitar, and I played trumpet. And also realized that that maybe wasn't going to be the thing that I could make a living at. And I sort of changed my direction to something that's very creative, but a little bit more. It was very fortuitous to come into the technology industry when I did in the mid-90s. And that's what I built my career on. Okay. And I played music for fun. My wife actually is a classically trained musician, so we had a lot of things in common to talk about, but not in terms of actual participation.
Playing, right.
A couple years ago, I had the opportunity to pick up the electric bass. I actually played a gig on the electric bass before I really understood how to play the electric bass. Okay. But that told me that I could actually play this instrument. And actually my first electric bass teacher is behind the camera, Mr. Joe Howell. And he got me started sort of on the right path, and I've studied with some really great folks. Anthony Wellington, this is one of his shirts. Phenomenal bass player, phenomenal educator. Really got instilled in me the discipline and some of the really important concepts about playing the bass. And that was on the electric. And then 2 years ago, as my wife was beginning studies on the cello, she kept saying, oh, you know, the double bass, you could play the double bass. And I said, oh, I'm an adult. It's a big instrument, expensive, and I'll hurt myself. And finally, one of our conductor friends kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you know, if you've dedicated yourself for 18 months with a good teacher, you could play in my orchestra. And that was what it took. Wow. And I did happen to be connected with a fantastic teacher, Dr. Anthony Shelba, and he was concerned about having an adult who'd played electric bass and whether that was possible. But again, through kind of regular lessons and good dedication and a good method, you know, following a good process, learning from him and his mistakes and his experience and his successes, all of that has led me to a year after I started lessons, be able to play in an orchestra. I've actually just played a concert this past Saturday, have 3 more concerts coming up in community orchestras.
Okay.
And so that's the in a nutshell, the history from beginning as a kid, loving music, playing, then loving music, listening to it, and just kind of playing for fun, and back to a point where I'm dedicated to learning a new instrument, something that will take many, many years to master.
Achieve it, to do it. Sure. Now, which I'm glad that you're bringing up this, because this is what we're trying to discuss and get across to people. How important, in your opinion, is lessons?
I think
and
that.
Why? Tell me.
Yeah,
why.
no, I think having, well, if I could answer that a little bit differently, sure. Having a really good teacher is really important.
Okay.
Having a good process that teacher is going through, having that teacher have a good method for whatever instrument they're teaching is really important. And then actually attending lessons regularly and working in a consistent way, in a dedicated way, that's important. So I think lessons in and of themselves are really important, and I think in a lot of cases people will take lessons. Great, I'm going to lessons, and this is, some teachers are good, some teachers aren't as good.
Sure.
So I think it's a combination of things, but it is that regular progress checkpoint. Anthony always says it keeps you accountable, right? If you're really dedicated, that fear you feel when you are going to a lesson and you're not quite prepared, hopefully you'll translate that into the next lesson where you'll put a little bit more time in the practice room, and maybe that next lesson will go well. The other side of it is you may not feel like great about your playing, and you might just be beating yourself up, you can't get something right. You go into a lesson and the teacher says, wow, that was really good. So we're our own worst critic, and we're absolutely the worst at being able to assess ourselves, especially as musicians. It's very difficult. to be honest, both positive and negative. Right. So I think it's the combination of getting the kind of the slap in the back, saying, you could be a little bit better, and the pat on the back when you've actually done something well. That is that magic alchemy that a teacher student, especially in music, can really create. But it requires good teacher, good student, good method, the time in the practice room, the dedication to come to lessons, and all those things to kind of come together. But a lot of magic can happen.
Yeah,
from
it's
that.
like the combination of everything is so important. It makes like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Well, now let me ask you too, Matt, which I think is important, is tell me about, as a musician today with you, and we're discussing your other stuff, the other thing that you do, and how's the internet equating to this for you as a musician? It's just we'll do that angle first.
Yeah. So if I just think about myself as a musician, it is an incredible resource. I mean, 25, 30 years ago when I was studying the trumpet, I didn't have reference recordings. I didn't have music that I could easily get access to. I didn't have those resources.
Right.
Now, I can't say that at that time I would have necessarily taken advantage of them, so
right.
maybe that was fine. But today, there's an incredible resource out there for the student who's attempting to progress. So, I mean, orchestrally, I can look at videos of great performances. I can download music that is the stuff that's in the public domain. I can see parts, some of which are scans of parts, have markings in them, so you can see, how to play this music. So I think that is a phenomenal resource. Okay. And there's a lot of educational material, of course. Right. Now, that is the other side of that coin, is there's a lot of material. There's a lot of stuff out there. Not all of it's good. So you have people who are trying to use the internet as a way to extend their reach, which is great, but there's not as much of a quality filter. So that's a challenge. And I think trying to price things is also a challenge. The commercial aspect. I mean, my professional life, I do work in software, mostly in private businesses developing software for them, consulting on that. But that awareness of what technology does and sort of the reach that it has, it's very positive, but there's just a lot of material to wade through. So I for me, it doesn't replace the in-person interaction.
Okay.
Now, the technology allows me to interact with people like Anthony over things like Skype. So I can have a lesson and of course, when he sees this, he'll laugh because I'm sort of on sabbatical from electric because the upright has been all consuming. But when he and a lot of his students who are around the globe study with him weekly via Skype.
Right.
That technology allows for that, and it can be used very effectively. The fact that I can hear over that, I can share something, I can take a screenshot, I can send you a file. So that technology allows for a new kind of interaction. I will say that in-person is always best. I think even Anthony would say in-person is really the best way to get real feedback. I'm looking at you in the eye. Right. You can get all the nonverbal cues about what you've just done, and it can be a bit more responsive. So I think the internet as a whole is net positive for the most dedicated students and for the people who really are working at it. It can be a little bit of a crapshoot if you're just thinking you're going to go out there and grab that 20 licks and I'm going to be a guitarist.
That's yeah. See, that's what I've seen. Like a lot of kids, I've had kids come into the shop and stuff, and boy, they would play that Sweet Child of Mine look great, and and it sounds really good, or the lead to Stairway to Heaven. I'm dating myself, and it's like really great. But I find when I say to kids, wow, that's pretty cool. Let me hear you do some. Let's grab a guitar. Let's jam. Let's do like some blues in a key of G.
Yeah. Or
and they're
write out a chord progression.
Yeah, and they're lost. And it's like they've learned to do that, but they don't know why they're doing it. And to me, I guess that's what you're referenced to when you say there's a lot of stuff out there, but there's certain things that are okay and there's certain, and that's, to me, I mean, that knowledge, that's why I always try to push in our shows about the fact of, guys like you have accomplished and put work into it to learn with lessons and to know how to you'll always have it your whole life. Yeah. You'll always have it, no matter what happens.
Well, Victor Wooten talks about music being a language. Mm-hmm. He also talks about the fact that when he first learned a language, both music and speaking, he learned by jamming, by, just we sit down, we have a conversation. We didn't have to write out a chart for this conversation. Right? You could have said, here's all the questions and this is the tone that I want you to get. Right. But no, we're able to have that kind of interaction because there's a lot of context that, just from being musicians and kind of what you're trying to do and the fact that I understand the language you're speaking. Music is similar because, you could pick up a guitar and you could play a chord and I could fish around and figure out what chord that is, and you can play another chord and I can interpret that. Maybe that's a chord progression. But boy, if you could just write that down and say, I kind of want a blues feel, and we're going to do a little bit different thing here in the bridge, and then we're going to go back to the head, and then we're going to do this little coda, and then we're done. The fact that I could understand all of that, and I know what key you're going to play it in, and I know stylistically what you want to do, then we can do so much more. So that takes training.
Yeah.
Some of it you can read in a book.
Right.
Some of it you learn on the bandstand, and then some of it you learn from kind of progressing through a process, learning a particular instrument.
Yeah.
And again, I think that only for the most incredibly gifted and very focused and very self-directed can that happen without some kind of guidance from a teacher. And again, it's also the feedback. It's also the positive and negative about what you're doing well, what you're not. Especially on this instrument, the physicality of it, not hurting yourself, being in a good position, being having things orchestrated right, not playing with too much tension. All those things are very hard to assess for yourself. So, so I think those are. It's just really important from a learning the language at a level of depth that allows you a deeper conversation with other musicians. That's what it's about. Yes, I could pick up that guitar. I couldn't play Sweet Child of Mine, but I probably could play a little Guns N' Roses. I can't believe people are still playing Guns N' Roses. We could do that and probably have some fun, but then it can go so much further with some guidance and some dedication and some practice and all those things.
So guys, you listen, you hear him. He speaks the truth. Yeah. Okay. Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming, man. Thank you and talking and educating the people because we really need it. And we need to get the young warriors and the young soldiers out there now to start, picking up.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And do it, and I really appreciate it. Guys, remember, go to his website. You got to check it out. You'll see in the video we got with him, which he's awesome playing. And guys, thanks again for stopping by. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks from Encore Chat. Really put an effort in to learn an instrument. It's so important. Thanks again for lending an ear. Thanks for stopping in to Encore Chat. I'm Pete Schmeeds that owns a small little store called Schmeeds Music, 831 Route 10 East in the Pine Plaza Shopping Center in Whippany, New Jersey. Thanks, guys, and stay in touch to see more videos to come.